Welcome to the Mojo Mundi podcast, where it's all about magic, manifesting, and movement. I'm Ginny Watts, the Dancing Witch, and this episode is titled A Heart-Centered Life and the Art of Allowing. The concepts of living a heart-centered life and leading with the heart have become very popular, not only in spiritual circles, but in business, education, and medicine. Proponents of the power of guidance from the heart commonly use terms like emotion, values, intuition, inner wisdom, compassion, connection, authenticity, and presence when describing how to live and lead from the heart. The dynamic movement toward focusing on leading with the heart has arisen in response to the deficits and dysfunctions created by Western culture's fixation on intellect as the supreme guide for action and the measure of competence. The idea of revering intellect and disdaining emotion is deeply entwined with patriarchy and racism. The idea of the heart as a source of guidance for the individual, however, is not a new notion. Heart-centered beliefs date back to ancient philosophy and indigenous wisdom. In their scholarly article titled Brain Beats Heart, A Cross-Cultural Reflection, available through the National Library of Medicine, published date 2021, Thomas Brandt and Doreen Huppert describe, quote, the widespread assignment of emotional and cognitive functions to the heart in ancient secular and religious cultures throughout the world. They go on, ancient examples of the heart being ascribed functions it does not in fact have can be found in the Egyptian Book of the Dead, the doctrine of the Greek philosopher Aristotle, and in some aspects of traditional Chinese medicine. In an essay published on the Bioneers website in 2019, Ilarion Larry Merkuliev describes his people's deep understanding of the heart-centered life. In the essay, The Indigenous Art of Following Wisdom from the Heart, Merkuliev says, when Unangan elders speak of the heart, they do not mean mere feelings, even positive and compassionate ones, but of a deeper portal of profound interconnectedness and awareness that exists between humans and all living things. Comparing the language used in these two articles highlights the discrepancies between the classic Western view of the brain as the seat of control for the functioning of the body rather than or to the exclusion of the heart, and is a reflection of the Western patriarchal bias of intellect being superior to emotion. Ironically, current research now recognizes that the gut and heart have their own nervous systems that control the functioning of these organs. The nervous systems of these organs operate on their own, yet are intimately intertwined with brain function through two-way communication, mutual feedback, and mutual modification. Of course, the discrepancy between the medical model of brain and heart reflected in Brandt and Huppert's article and the holistic model understood by indigenous cultures worldwide that Merkuliev describes lies in the exclusion of spiritual, or what I call cosmic energy, by the medical model, and the deep knowledge of cosmic energy in indigenous cultures. Our ancient ancestors and many indigenous cultures today recognize energy centers in the body that are associated with elemental, temporal, celestial, lineal, tonal, and or chromatic energies and qualities. Perhaps the most well-known example of a system of energy centers in the body is the Vedic chakras. There are innumerable other less well-known energy systems among indigenous cultures around the world. In the cosmic energy view, organs and areas of the physical body are connected with non-physical energies that may not obviously correspond to the biological placement or function of the organs in the physical body. The heart, as it lies in the center of the torso, is the midpoint between energy centers in the lower part of the torso and those in the upper part of the torso and the head. Of course, this is a metaphor for a much more complex energetic reality that we may never be able to truly define and know intellectually. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. When we say heart-centered thinking, we are speaking of an approach that is physical, energetic, and metaphorical. Secular, urban, industrialized, and technologized capitalist cultures are beginning to feel shifts in the values and beliefs of an ever-growing segment of their populations. The global lockdowns in response to COVID awakened in the human population a deep awareness of the destructive consequences of isolation. And this awakening is not only about isolation from other humans, but also about isolation from our planet and our place on it. For example, the current political climate notwithstanding, the majority of Americans continue to support recycling, organic food alternatives, and concern for the consequences of unbridled expansion to our descendants. The rise of heart-centered leadership and heart-centered living is testament to this expanding awareness. Heart-centered living is described as taking action from a place of compassion, authenticity, and honesty. Definitions may include balancing one's own needs with the needs of others, acting from deep inner wisdom or intuition, caring for the entire planet, making choices based on thinking and feeling. However, a fair number of proponents for heart-centered living describe the process as feeling instead of thinking, as choosing the heart over the head or brain, and as allowing emotions to guide actions. I know that for individuals with whom I've worked or with whom I've spoken, the choice of either or often arises as a reaction to polarized behavior directed toward them. Many of us have been slammed for being in tune with emotions and intuition. Girls and women are labeled as being incapable of holding the highest political offices because they are too emotional or hormonal. Boys and men are attacked as weak and deplorable for showing grief or fear or depression. Cultures where emotion is freely displayed are labeled as primitive, where attunement with the environment is revered, labeled ignorant, or where prayer and intuition are important parts of decision-making, regarded as superstitious. A response to shaming attacks that attempts to turn the tables by demeaning the attackers is common and understandable. The best defense is a good offense. Unfortunately, the problem of polarization, right versus wrong, good versus bad, black versus white, male versus female, thinking versus feeling, heart versus head, is as detrimental as the labeling is to both parties. When we comply with the premise that the answer has to be either one or the other, we have not only adopted the reasoning of those who do us harm, but we have cut ourselves and them off from a myriad of possible avenues to reconciliation, healing, and evolving. And here is where the art of allowing comes in. When we allow that there is a place for both thinking and feeling, for the woman's perspective, the man's perspective, for a non-binary perspective, for science and spirituality, for what can be known logically and what can be known intuitively, we open up space for discourse, for adaptation, for utilizing a wide array of skills and perspectives. In short, we maximize the possibilities for evolution and expansion. Expansion is promptly stifled inside rigid parameters. Limiting beliefs are massive blocks to manifesting. Allowing other possibilities, perceptions, points of view opens wide the field of creation. The challenge for us humans is that it seems mutually exclusive to be true to my own beliefs and to honor another's beliefs. It not only seems impossible, it often feels dangerous. Ironically, that danger feeling is more about our own uncertainties, doubts, and underlying lack of faith than it is about the potential for another to destroy what we truly believe. Let's go back to the assertion that ancient and indigenous cultures ascribed attributes to the heart that it does not have. As I am fond of saying, we have to understand the terms we're using, the definitions of our words. When scientists say that the heart doesn't think or doesn't emote, they are defining think and emote in terms of brain functions. In other words, thought is defined as electrochemical processes in the brain, and emotions as a pattern of interrelated neurological activity in the brain. Since the heart is not the brain, it is automatically excluded by the definition. Yet there is a growing compendium of research that demonstrates the heart's central and integrated role in emotions and the experience of emotions. We are also learning how little we know about the complex reciprocal relationship between heart and brain. We know very, very little about how the heart or the brain works. As we gather more scientific information, we find that ancient assertions are being supported by what we learn. Two different perspectives, scientific and spiritual or intuitive, on the same issue that can inform and complement one another. What is the allowing alternative to asserting the heart can't think? When researchers are able to say something like, given our current definition, we do not have evidence that the heart is an organ of reasoning. That is an example of allowing. This statement acknowledges, or allows, for the limits inherent in the statement. There is an allowing that this is just one perspective, ours, which acknowledges the possibility of other definitions. It allows for new information to appear in the future beyond what is current. That flexibility speaks to us and says, keep the door open. We might find we need to change our thoughts, assertions, and theories about this, and that is the path to continuing revelation. On the other hand, when proponents of heart-centered living define this practice as feeling instead of thinking, as using intuition instead of reason, the same polarization occurs, only now thinking is degraded. There is no difference between cutting out one asset or another. We are created with access to a wonderful, remarkable, and vast array of resources. How can it possibly be useful to abandon a whole sector of these assets? Degrading is limiting. The art of allowing is expanding. How does it look on an individual level when we are creating limiting definitions, assumptions, and/or rules about thinking and feeling? Let's start with the example that assumes we have thrown in our lot with the heart. Oftentimes, we make the faulty assumption that leading from the heart means that our emotions are meant to drive the bus. There are a myriad of problems with this assumption. Emotions are important guides when they are a part of an intricate process that incorporates all our resources. When emotions become the only thing we consciously use to determine our next course of action, we quickly veer off course. This maxim is never clearer than in matters of the heart. That statement may seem like an oxymoron, but bear with me. Consider the case of pursuing someone who either is not interested or is using us for their own personal gain. As a therapist, a friend, a family member, and a human being, I have witnessed and experienced this situation more than once. We are in the rushes of infatuation, which is a powerful emotion that we frequently mistake for love. We really want the recipient of our desires to desire us in return. In some cases, the person never shows any interest, or any interest other than politeness. We feel an intense yearning, which we interpret as a sign that we love this person, we need this person, we can't live without this person is our soulmate. And therein lies the problem. We cannot feel without thinking. The two processes are completely entwined. What we are actually feeling initially is sexual desire and/or desperation and/or loneliness and/or positive feelings of liking and feeling simpatico. Our minds are thinking a whole lot of things about the emotions and physical sensations we are experiencing, and the thoughts we think are guided by our beliefs, including limiting beliefs, past experience, habits, and so on. These thoughts, in turn, call up more emotions, and a virulent feedback loop arises. Here's how the process might look. We meet this person, maybe we talk, or we've known this person and have realized how much we like them. We approach them on a more intimate level and receive a lukewarm response. What we feel in regard to that response tells us what we are thinking. If we feel disappointed, that tells us we were probably imagining that the object of our desire would desire us in return. If we feel angry, we are telling ourselves something negative about the person's response. We are angry not based on the person's response, but on what we believe about ourselves, others, relationships, and so on. Let's say the person was not just chilly, but was kind of rude. If we feel angry, that is a fear response. We may fear that the person will say something derogatory about us to other people, or that the person is judging us negatively. Our feelings reflect our beliefs, and has little to do with what the other person is thinking or feeling, or what they are going to do. What if we feel increased interest or desire in response to the brush-off? That also tells us about our own thoughts and beliefs. If we have had other important relationships that involved us pursuing someone who distanced from us, our increased desire signals an habitual emotional behavioral thought pattern. If we are highly distressed, this may signal a pattern of dependence on others for a sense of our own well-being. What our emotions are doing is telling us what we are telling ourselves, consciously or unconsciously, rather than what is true about the other person. When someone breaks up with us and we continue to pursue, or drop into depression or self-loathing, or become angry and vengeful, that is not because we should stalk them, or harm ourselves, or harm them. If we let emotions of desperation or pain or fear guide us, we may do harm to ourselves and others. The consequences for using only our feelings to guide our behaviors can be disastrous. No, our heart is not meant to be in charge. Our heart is meant to work in tandem with the brain and other resources like our values, our intuition, and our connection with deity as an integrated system. When we feel our feelings, it's time to listen and ask questions. It's time to step into the observer role and describe to ourselves what is going on. When we do listen, we discover very important wisdom. I am really disappointed that I got turned down. I really thought this person was into me. How did I get my signals so crossed? They just seemed so great. I am tired of meeting people I don't click with, and now the one person that is actually interesting doesn't think I am. Am I just doomed to be alone? Ugh. When we are willing to listen to what is going on inside, we are allowing the other person to have their feelings. We step away from trying to control how they feel about us. We also allow ourselves to be okay. We allow ourselves to have our feelings. We allow for there to be alternatives. We allow deity to give us information, feedback. The heart has done a miraculous job of helping us find our way to deeper truth. When we understand how this event fits into our life path, we have opportunities to decide how we want to respond. Here again, the heart plays an important role. Maybe we decide we are going to give up on relationships altogether. We can check in with our hearts and see how that feels. If we feel great sadness, that is a sign that we are feeling hopeless or victimized, and that is not in harmony with who we are, nor is it in harmony with our path. Our feelings may tell us that opting out of the challenges of life is in conflict with our values. It may help us realize we aren't yet in a position to be deciding anything. We need to be patient with our feelings and thoughts in order to find wisdom. If we decide to take a break from dating or seeking a relationship and we feel relief and a sense of ease, then our hearts are telling us that our choice to step back is in harmony with our path and aligns us with deity. These possibilities are only examples. There are as many responses and meanings as there are thoughts and feelings. The point is to recognize that the heart is not meant to drive the bus. The heart is our smoke detector. It detects a sign of thoughts, an outcome of something that may not be obvious. When the smoke detector goes off, must we jump out the window, run to the neighbors, and call 911? If we check the handle of the closed bedroom door and it burns our hand, then yes, perhaps we do. If we are 15 stories up in a hotel, likely we don't. If it turns out to be a chunk of our breakfast omelet that's stuck on the electric burner, we absolutely don't call 911. And if it's a low battery on the smoke detector? We need the discernment of our hearts to help us feel into our connection with deity. When we operate only by what we label as logical or factual, we will miss important information. Every situation has an overwhelming amount of information attached to it. When we are trying to make decisions, we automatically, even subconsciously, limit what facts we choose to attend to. Our decisions are based to a greater or lesser degree on beliefs, and our feelings tell us what those beliefs are. Beliefs are not facts, nor are they purely logical. For example, I have a dear friend who considers himself very logical. At one time in his life, he believed that optimism was an unrealistic emotional response to the realities of life. Bad things will happen. Therefore, choosing to focus on good things was illogical. The problem with this train of thinking? Well, first, my friend had a very painful family life growing up. In his home, it probably was reasonable to expect lots of bad things to happen. In life in general, however, and I do mean in general, the majority of moment-to-moment experiences are neutral to positive. By labeling attention to positive experiences as illogical and therefore useless, he unwittingly biased his attention toward the negative. That choice arose from his feelings of pain from his childhood. The distress he felt when something positive happened was not a reflection of the falseness of positive emotions. It was an anticipation of the loss of the positive feeling that would inevitably come, and that loss felt too great. To him, it meant that he had been suckered. It meant that his desire for joy and relief was pointless. Once he was able to examine his process, he recognized his negative feelings were not a sign that he should focus on the negative. Rather, it was information he was able to use to see his world more clearly. He could allow that there were plenty of neutral and positive experiences, and all experiences were just experiences. From there, he was able to enjoy positive events and be present to the painful events as well. Living a heart-centered life does not mean a feelings-only life. Rather, it describes living wholly, recognizing our place in the world, and honoring the diversity of our existence. Our hearts connect us with our senses, our relationships, our needs and desires, our thoughts, our values, our intuitions, and our spirits. Our hearts connect all the cells of our body, all the energetic centers, all the elemental and celestial portals. Our hearts send out the rivers of life in all directions through our bodies and receive the flow back into the center from every distant corner of ourselves. These connections remind us that we are beautiful, intricate, complex creations. When we allow ourselves to be whole, to be integrated, to be complicated, and when we respect the complexity of creation, we are living the wisdom of the heart. If you have questions or would like to explore more about heart-centered living and the art of allowing, you can connect with me via my website or email or on Facebook at Caravan of Dreams MT.
Our music is used by permission of the artist, Sean Phoenix. Thank you, Sean. And thank you to Bozeman Public Library for the Workbench Sound Studio located in beautiful downtown Bozeman, Montana. If you would like to learn more about allowing and how to find your unique style of manifesting, please visit my website, caravanofdreamsmt.com, or email me at dancingwitchmt@gmail.com. This is Ginny Watts, the Dancing Witch. Till next time, blessed be.